So this is a narrative playthrough of my game Mars Invasion. For a bit of background story on the main character, it's a soldier who was sent to the ISS to protect Earth from outer space. One of the labs on Mars had an outbreak of a virus that they were testing against the space creatures, so the main character was sent there to blow up the lab as if it was never there. For the level, I wanted to create a horde style gameplay, almost like World War Z, but I realised quite quickly that I wasn't able to do that. So instead I went for a dungeon room clearing styled game, as I've been playing a lot of RuneScape recently, and that gave me some of the inspiration for the dungeon style. And the clearing came from Xenocrisis and Dead Ops Arcade, with how they're a true top-down camera position. As you've probably seen, the character has an EOM currency. This is sort of a looting mechanic for the player, where they have to go around shooting different enemy types and picking up this EOM, which is environmental organic material. This currency can be used to buy doors or blow them up, as well as gain new weapons from them. The enemy spawners are set so that when the player enters the room, they start to spawn within that room. I made all the variables instant editable so that each time I placed a spawner within that room, that I could choose what enemies were going to spawn in there, as well as how many of them, which should force the player into the next room. The weapons I balanced against fighting waves of teeth rather than single teeth, as I found that the weapon wasn't as powerful as I expected when I tested it against the spawner. So I amped up some of the variables on them. I've used an XP system that's already within the framework, which spawns an XP pickup in each room after the player has been in there for a certain amount of time. This pickup grants the player enough XP to level up to the next weapon within 3 to 4 rooms out of the 15 rooms in total. So this gives the player the chance to use all the weapons that I've created across various different levels of enemies, from Teeth to Sarge to Grey. I've also added some pickups for health and ammo, which spawn when the player get below a certain amount of health or armor value. For instance, the health goes down past 500, it will spawn a health pickup for the player to grab, as you've just seen. The ammo value is for when the player gets below, I think it's 250 ammo points, or ammunition rather, that they then get a drop of ammo for when they need it. This mechanic was taken from Xenocrisis, as I just felt that it was an easier way to provide the player with what they needed when they needed it, rather than just giving it to them. For the environment, I've also added in some broken doors, which sort of open and close with some sparks. This is just to give the environment a bit of like a damaged sort of feel to it, as if the virus infected creatures have just taken over and trashed the place. There are 3 different types of doors which the player could go through: a 500 point, a 750 point, and a 1000 point. The 500 point doors are the standard doors for any type of enemy apart from the Grey. The 750 is for Sarges only, as well as where the weapons will drop for the player, or where they will get enough XP to get the next weapon. And the 1000 doors for the Gree, the final boss. The 3 weapons that I've chosen was the G36C, as I felt like a standard assault rifle was a good addition to the game, as well as seeing it in a lot of zombie games myself across Call of Duty. I also chose the Vortex Cannon as I wanted hordes of enemies with a minigun, because it's just a good mechanic to have and a good type of gameplay to create for the player. I've also added in a rocket launcher. I delayed the shooting so that it felt more realistic than just firing off rockets constantly. It does do a lot of damage, almost taking enemies out in one shot, I believe. So I feel like that was a good mechanic to have. With the enemies spawned in specific rooms, I done certain maths calculations to work out if the enemies would drop enough EOM for the player to be able to pick up or to use for those doors. The teeth drop 25 EOM and the Sarges drop 35 EOM. Depending on the room you're in and depending on the price of the doors, whether you have one door with one price or 2 doors with 2 different prices or the same price, I've worked out the calculations to spawn enough enemies for that player to move through both doors in one sitting of the room. I've also changed how the crosshair is tracked within the player, as I felt like the last time it wasn't shooting as accurately as I wanted it to. The camera rig also has lights on it which move depending on what room the player is in, so it's always lit, as I feel like if you were on another planet, especially Mars being orange and quite bright itself, and the sun being close to Mars, that it would be a very bright atmosphere for the player. So anyway, I feel like this is enough gameplay. Um, I haven't been able to reach enough EOM to get to the boss, unfortunately. This is because one has got stuck. But obviously you will. So hopefully you've enjoyed this narrative video, and thank you.